So, hello and welcome everybody. And I'm just going to start with a little bit of an acknowledgement and a dedication. During these turbulent times of two major crises, the pandemic and the killing by police of George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks, Sandra Bland, and so many other Black men and women, people both named and unnamed. During these challenging times when essential workers are putting their lives on the line, as well as those out on the street supporting Black Lives Matter, seeking systematic change in so many of our institutions, with those who can't be there cheering them on. During these times, we at Poets and Writers are honored to offer this opportunity to celebrate diverse voices, to pay tribute to the act of writing, of speaking truth to power. We'd like to dedicate this reading to all those that lost their lives to COVID-19 and all those who were killed by brutal police. May these unbearable losses guide us towards a universal respect for all life, for a just and peaceful world where all of our bodies can be honored and all of our voices be heard. I think you all know me, but I'll just say I'm Bonnie Rose Marcus and I direct the Readings and Workshops program East at Poets and Writers. And I'm really happy to be here co-emceeing, co-hosting with my colleague and Jamie Aseye Fitzgerald, who directs the Readings and Workshops program West.
Greetings and thank you everyone for joining us for Poets and Writers' first virtual Connecting Cultures reading. Though it's our first virtual Connecting Cultures reading, this is a long-standing tradition. RW East has been holding this event in New York for, I think, about 12 years. And here in Los Angeles, California, we've been holding this event for about 10 years. Sheltering in place has prompted us to hold this event virtually, but the silver lining is that we can now present organizations and readers from both New York and California together for the first time, which we're very excited about. I have loved this event from the very beginning because while each reader has just a short time to present their work, we as an audience get to witness and hear voices that come out of a spectrum of human experience and expression so wide, multifaceted, and varied, it can't help but inspire and expand us.
I also want to say that this could not have happened without the support of many, and I particularly want to give a big thank you and shout out to Ricardo Hernandez, who is the Program Associate for Readings and Workshops East. He's setting this whole thing up technologically, and he's an incredible colleague, and I feel so proud and happy and honored to have him working with me. And I also want to give a big shout out and thanks to Dan Tran Kong Huen, who's been our paid fellow for the last 10 months and is staying on with us for a few more months, and she has contributed great energy and inspiration to our program, and so I want to really thank her as well.
And we also want to thank all the staff at Poets and Writers, especially our executive director, Elliot Figman, who have helped us all work remotely and keep the programs going. Poets and Writers, if you don't already know, is the nation's largest nonprofit serving creative writers. Our mission is to foster the professional development of poets and writers, to promote communication throughout the literary community, and to help create an environment in which literature can be appreciated by the widest possible public. One of the ways we've done this is by operating the Readings and Workshops mini grant program, which helps pay fees directly to writers who give readings or teach creative writing workshops.
And you know, it's really, when we realized we wouldn't be able to keep funding live events, we made this transition to funding virtual events. And it's really, as much as all of us, I think, of course, would much rather be able to meet together live. We've gotten a lot of wonderful feedback from our workshop participants and from our reading series that have gone virtual, that this has been a real lifeline, a way to connect during this time through writing and through community. And so we're really happy that we were able to make this transition and to be able to still, you know, share and be in community.
So just before we kick things off, I just wanted to go over some Zoom etiquette. Please keep yourself muted while others are reading. You can show your support and love by writing in the chat. You can also clap hands, wave fingers. You can use the little reactions in the controls down at the bottom if you want to clap or give a thumbs up. And so without further ado, I will kick things off by thanking our funders, the California Arts Council and the Friends of Poets and Writers, who help support the program here in California and the West. And our first group is the Chinese Culture Center of San Francisco. And the curator for this group, I am going to introduce her. Her name is Hoi Leung. And she is, as I said, the curator for the Chinese Culture Center of San Francisco. She is the creative lead on the center's art exhibitions and Museum Without Walls initiatives. Hoi manages 41 Ross, an art space engaging with Chinatown's everyday culture. Her recent curatorial projects include Homing and Task of Remembrance. Take it away, Hoi.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. It's great to be in community with everyone here. I will be introducing briefly about the organization, the project that Michael and Chun will be reading from today, and the writers themselves. So the Chinese Culture Center is based in San Francisco's Chinatown. We're founded over 50 years ago. The organization emerged from the civil rights movement to be an art and culture center for the Chinatown neighborhood, San Francisco, and the Asian American community at large. In the past decade, we are committed our work to create spaces for contemporary artistic expressions and creative engagement through exhibitions, educational programming, and community-based art projects. Last year, we had the privilege of entering a year-long conversation on memory through the exhibition and programming series, Task of Remembrance, which feature over 15 artists and projects, and I also using it as my background today. And the goal of the project, it was really to look at how artists treat memory as a practice, recognizing memory's failures and shortcoming, in particular for immigrants or communities of colors, families who have gone through generational trauma. You know, today we still see memories are either erased, overlooked, or simply forgotten. And it was through this opportunity I was able to invite Michael Warr and Chun to host a reading and open mic on their project, 2 Languages, 1 Community. It's a project that connects the Chinese American and African American communities with poetry storytelling in remembrance of our past and in search of our futures together. Michael and Chun presented their poems written from a series of workshops where African American and Chinese American community engage in a rare cultural exchange based on dialogue storytelling. Workshop participants wrote poems, short stories based on memories sparked by photographs of their parents, their younger selves, and other family members. The writing is then translated into Chinese and English and then published online onto 2languages1community.com and as a book titled Catching Memory. And so now I will introduce our readers. Michael Warr's most recent book is Of Poetry and Protest, From Emmett Till to Trayvon Martin. His other books include The Armageddon of Funk, We Are All, The Black Boy, The Power Lines, A Decade of Poetry from Chicago's Guild Complex. He's also recognized in his community-based artistic work through the Creative Work Fund in his multimedia project in Bayview, Center Point, San Francisco. His poetry is translated into Chinese as a part of 2languages, 1 Community projects with his collaborator, Chun Yu. Chun Yu is a poet, graphic novelist, and scientist. She's the author of the award-winning memoir, Little Green, and Emperor Poets, a graphic novel in progress. Her work has been published in numerous award-winning anthologies. Her writing and work in community has been taught in schools and recognized through supports from Poets and Writers, San Francisco Arts Commission, and the Salabog Family Foundation. So let's welcome Michael Warr and Chun and the project Two Languages, One Community. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Hoi, for such a wonderful introduction, and thanks to poets and writers who has been supporting us through the past couple of years. And I mean, ever since we started this project, we received, every event we received support from poets and writers. And then, you know, also as an individual artist, we always receive amazing support from the same organization. So I just want to express my gratitude. And the Chinese Culture Center of San Francisco is really a great organization to work with. And last year, it just happened to fit our projects just fit into the memory, the whole theme. So it was really amazing how such synchronicities happen. And our event was scheduled to be on last September, but just a few days from the event, I received a phone call from China because my mother was hospitalized and I had to cancel the event. And on the same day, I left San Francisco and it was in China for 4 months. And it was only after 4 months, a week after the lockdown in China, I traveled across the ocean, coming back for this event scheduled for the Chinese New Year. So it's quite a journey, but it's so connected and it's so related to what's happening now. So now I'm going to share the screen, for some slides for our project. So could you see that in full screen? Not yet? Okay. So is it okay? Can
yes,
you see
we
it?
see it.
Yeah, is it on full screen, the slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the chapbook that's coming out of this project, but this is going to be a series. And so it's called Two Languages, One Community, Catching Memory is the title. And so we have a website here, and these are our beautiful mothers. And we each wrote a poem for them. So my family situation is, my parents are in China. I cannot really go back to visit them. It's many crises altogether, including the relationship between the two countries, plus COVID-19 and everything that's going on here. So it's really a difficult time for me personally, and I think it's a difficult time for many people around the world. Many of us are just separated from our beloved ones. So I wrote this poem for my father, who always check a map when I visit them, when I go out to meet some friends. He always wanted to know where I was. So it just stayed with me, this image. So I wrote this poem for both my parents. The map. When I was born, your bosom was a map. I occupied all of it in your cradling arms. When I began to walk, your eyesight was a map. I learned my steps, toddling and waddling in your adoring gaze. When I started school, your mind became a map. I ventured out and back, morning and night, in your unceasing care. When I grew up and left home, from hometown to other towns, home country to other countries, your heart became the map. I searched far and wide, high and low, for my direction and a place in the world, in your loving thoughts. Whenever I set out for a journey, you asked me for my destination, studied an open map, and each time accurately located the point of my being. I'm trying to move the slides. That's interesting. Why is not? Sorry about this. Is everybody seeing? Okay, sorry. Okay. It's a little glitchy. Yeah. Sorry. Whenever I set out for a journey, you ask me for my destination, studied an open map, and each time accurately located the point of my being. Then one day, you picked up a magnifying glass, eyes moving closer and closer, hands trembling more and more. Finally, at a loss, no longer seeing clearly the lines and the points on the map, you hold me in your heart. Gradually growing old one day, you can only walk in my eyesight, fumbling steps. Every trip outside, an adventure. From now on, I will walk by your side so you can lean on my arms when we are at a loss, not knowing where to go. Love is the map. So the poem in Chinese. 地图，刚出生时，你的胸怀是一张地图，我是那地图的全部，在你的怀抱中。刚走路时，你的目光是一张地图，我在那地图中摇摇学步，在你的注视中。上学时，我走出了家门，你的脑海是一张地图，我在那地图中朝出暮归，在你的牵挂中。长大后，我离开了家，从故乡到外乡，从祖国到异国，你的心是一张地图，我在那地图中摸索方向，寻找位置，在你的想念中。每当我开始一个新的旅程，你会打开一张地图，询问我的去处，时时都能准确地找到我的所在。后来你拿起了放大镜，眼睛离地图越来越近，手抖得越来越厉害。终于茫然中，你已经看不清地图上的点与线。我在你的心里。渐行渐慢，有一天，你只能在我的目光里蹒跚。每一次出行都是一场冒险。从此，我将把你搀扶在我的臂弯。当我们茫然不知所向，爱是一张地图。So the last poem I will share is a poem I wrote on the Chinese Memorial Day. It happened to be the day 1 million people were diagnosed for COVID-19. So today, the world has fallen ill. Today, 1 million have been diagnosed. Today, tens of thousands have left us. Today, the door to heaven is crushed. Today, angels in white are fighting on earth for us. Today, a virus is forcing all nations into a united front. Today, we humans have to learn to become one. I will move to the next slide. I will skip the Chinese, but you can look at it. So, Michael, would you like to read?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the book cover that Chun showed earlier, where she showed our mothers, one of the things that we've been doing with these workshops is focusing on family. And one of the themes that we found as soon as we started working was the beauty of our mothers. And the excerpts that you see on the book are from the poems that, 2 poems that we wrote about our mothers. Chun's is actually called Beauty Lu. And the one that I wrote is called Black Star. And the thing about that poem is I wrote it because when I first saw the image that's on the cover, first time I ever saw that image of my mother, the first thought I had was, wow, she looks like a movie star. And whenever others would see that image, they would have the same reaction before I said anything. But yet my mother used to be really taunted because she was so Black. And even though she was beautiful. So that's where this piece comes from. It's called Black Star. She was named Shinola outside her name, as slight against her Blackness, by Black souls caught inescapably in her dark attraction and blinded by her radiance in the sky.
Sorry， 黑明星作为对他的黑的蔑视，他被那些失落在他无法逃脱的黑色的吸引力中，和被他在天空中耀眼的光芒照瞎了眼睛的灵魂们，外号为西努纳谐游。
Thank you, Chun.
You're welcome.
And the last piece that I wrote, actually, I wrote this because the Chinese Cultural Center asked Chun and I to participate in a project that they put together where artists were responding to the question of how, just how they were doing during COVID-19 and what their responses were. And so I wrote this piece called To Your Salient, Who Attacks Us All. And it was in response to the attacks that were taking place against Asian people around the world.
Okay, I give the screen to you, Michael.
Okay. To your salient who attacks us all, do you call yourself God-fearing, devoted to do unto others? Does your God condone your violence, your ignorance, your corruption? Does your God hate your neighbors like you do? Does your God share your love for prophets bearing false witness, fueling your grievance fever? Do you swallow the lies they regurgitate? Do you really need a reason? Are you truly a true believer of both God and golden calf? Does the all-knowing know you? Do they love you as you are? Does it matter that they are watching your naked depravity? Do you pray before you pray on innocence in this guilty world? Do you have your God's blessing, or are you as godless as you seem? Did your father teach you to beat the mean and main? Is he proud of your cowardice? Does your mother say, well done, son? Did they train you in your backwardness? Do you feel bigger in your smallness, content with acts of uselessness? Is your inner bully seething still beneath your concealed surface? Are you comforted in your criminality, stupefied by superiority, simply insane or lost? Who are you?
Okay, so this is translated into Chinese. When I first see this poem from Michael, I was just so moved because we were in the middle of the pandemic. There were lots of really difficult things were happening to the Asians. So here's the Chinese version, and it's widely shared. We shared, and people, around, in China and here, my Chinese American communities are all very moved by this poem. So, 是攻击你们的人，他们在攻击我们所有人，这是正在进行中的咆哮，对新冠疫情中对亚裔暴力攻击的回应。你自称敬畏上帝吗？你致力于己所不欲，勿施于人吗？你的上帝宽恕了你的暴力、你的无知、你的堕落吗？你的上帝像你这样仇恨你的邻居吗？ 你的上帝会认同你带着假见证不断给你的怨愤火上浇油的所谓先知的爱吗？你吞下了他们反复口吐的谎言吗？你真的需要理由吗？你是你的神和神像真正的信徒吗？你那全知的神认识你吗？他们会爱这样的你吗？你在乎他们看着你赤裸的堕落吗？在袭猎这个有罪的世界上的无辜者时，你祈祷吗？你有上帝的祝福吗？还是像你看起来那样没有上帝？你的父亲教你去攻击、贬低和残害他人吗？他会为你的怯懦感到骄傲吗？你的母亲会说干得好，儿子吗？他们训练你倒退落后了吗？你的卑鄙渺小时感到更强大吗？你满足于自己无意的行为吗？隐藏在你表面下的恶霸还在沸腾吗？你在被优越性麻木了的犯罪中受到了安慰吗？是疯了还是迷路了？你是谁？
Thank you so much. That was amazing and beautiful. I want to introduce our next group, the curator for the Community Literature Initiative is Camari Carter-Hawkins. She is the author of Death by Comb, a stellar body of poetry that seeks to normalize natural hair and find solid ground in an ever-changing world. And Write Back to You, a guided journal for writing yourself back into your life. Camari leads journaling workshops all across Los Angeles and beyond. Her poetic works can also be found in Rise, an anthology of power and unity, and the Best of the Poetry Salon anthology. Camari is the 2018 Spoken Word Voices Heard Women's Amateur Slam winner and performs her works nationally. She is also a fellow of the Community Literature Initiative Poetry Writing Program and a proud advisor of CLI and World Stage Press. Welcome, Camari.
Thank you for that warm welcome. Hi, everyone. So glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Okay, let's get it started. I'm going to tell you about the organization that I am representing today called the Community Literature Initiative, based in Los Angeles, California. So Community Literature Initiative, short for CLI, we also call it, affectionately CLI, is a Los Angeles-based nonprofit organization focused on teaching writers in the city how to create poetry of a publishable quality. The CLI course is a 10-month program to refine works in progress and to finalize manuscripts ready for publication. At the conclusion of the 10-month program, all participants are guaranteed a first book publishing contract with one of our partnering Los Angeles small presses. CLI celebrates entering its 8th year of serving the literary needs of Los Angeles. CLI has several literary programs, such as the Living Writers series that sends living authors into high school classrooms to read from and donate copies of their published works. World Stage Press is a publishing house, and now the Sims Library of Poetry, which will be the largest library in Los Angeles dedicated to poetry. We are excited to continue to serve the Los Angeles writers community. I myself have participated in the class 4 years, so I am one of those continuing writers who just never leave a program once you kind of get in there. And I'm excited to welcome the 2 writers who will be representing today. They both have completed their works. So I'll tell you first about Erika Ayon, and then second, we'll have Alexander James. So Erika Ayon immigrated from Mexico when she was 5 years old and grew up in South Central Los Angeles. She graduated from UCLA with a BA in English. She was selected as a 2009 PEN Emerging Voices Fellow. She has taught poetry to middle school and high school students all across Los Angeles. Her works have appeared in the Centos Review, Dryland, Wide Awake Anthology, Coiled Serpent Anthology, and elsewhere. Her debut poetry collection, Orange Lady, was published by Rosage Press. And I'll also read about Alexander James, so they can just go back to back. Alexander James is a Los Angeles-born powerhouse speaker who has shared his heart on countless stages over his 10-year career as a minister and speaker. Alexander James is a proud alum of the Community Literature Initiative. So please welcome Erika Ayon, and followed by Alexander James.
Hello, thank you. So I just want to say thank you really quick to Poets and Writers, and thank you to Camari and Community Literature Initiative for allowing me to represent them. So I'm just very grateful. And I'm just like so happy to see people from the Bay Area and New York City today. So sending everyone love. So I'm gonna read a couple of poems, and I'll just like read them. I won't explain a lot. I write a lot about like family and being an immigrant. So this first poem is called June 1986. My grandparents sent letters from Mexico in red, blue, and white striped envelopes. The printed address reads Tepic, Nayarit, Mexico, a place where our footsteps are carved into the dirt from countless summers spent there, climbing trees, swimming in the nearby river, and chasing chickens. They read about how happy they are that we made it safely. They were worried because there are so many stories of people who never make it. Every day, white crosses spring along the border. They want us to tell Marissa they are sorry she lost one of her Mickey Mouse shoes during the trip. Soon they will send her a pair. They want to know about Los Angeles. I draw them a picture. One Saturday morning, I sit at the kitchen table, crayons spread out in front of me like a rainbow. I draw a waterfall, a field of purple daisies, a lake with a school of fishes, a sunshine over a mountain. I press the crayons hard as I transfer the tips of the crayons break as I try to transfer the vivid colors onto the page. The broken pieces stain my fingers like ink. The drawing sent in a plain white envelope. The address reads Los Angeles, California, Estados Unidos. I refuse to let them know that this city makes me breathe faster. The paved sidewalks weighs my feet. I have to close my eyes to try to remember their faces. Words spoken in English rattle inside my head like loose change. The pavement swallows my memories of Mexico with each step. As the days go by, Mexico becomes a dream I can no longer recall, fades into each morning. And then this next one is called My Father's Guayabera Shirts. And August is gonna be like the 8th anniversary of my father's death. So just like, you know, I know a lot of people in this country are grieving though, but you know, grief it carries with us, it stays with us. So this is called My Father's Guayabera Shirts. I have 3 guaraberas that belong to him. I keep them hung in the back of the closet, far enough away so I don't have to see them, but close enough for when I need to. The beige one I gave him that Christmas, the way he liked them, with left and right, breast pockets, soft linens, dirty buttons down the middle. The sky blue one he wore his last Father's Day. He hated taking pictures, but he agreed for some reason, and all 10 of us took turns taking pictures with him in the backyard by the cactus. The gray one, I saw him in one afternoon as he stood by the front gate. His eyes matched the shirt. His eyes changed colors often, depending on the weather. His mood, it was overcast that day. I asked my mom to give them to me when he passed away. I felt like a scavenger looking through his clothes, a mountain of blue, grays, and browns. They were the only colors he wore because he said other colors were for funerals or weddings. I always thought that they were the colors he could relate to most. All those days spent on a farm as a young boy and man had translated into this. It's just like what he missed most: open skies, fields, and rivers. I didn't want anything else. Not his white sombrero, his light gray raincoat, the black handkerchief he carried to wipe his brow. Just these 3 shirts. Some days, when I feel his memory fading, I hold them near me, embrace them. His scent still lives in them. It's of leaves, citrus, freshly seeded soil, like fall before the harvest. And thank you. And this last poem that I'm gonna read, it was inspired by just all those mothers who are separated from their children at the border. So I said I wasn't gonna explain it, but just really quickly. So as I became a new mother, I have a baby that's gonna be 2 years old. I just, whenever I hear stories about children or mothers, or even like George Floyd, or just like people losing their sons, you know, it has like a different meaning since I became a mother. It feels like more deeply. So this is Letter to a Grieving Mother. To Yasmin Juarez, mother of a 19-month-old María, who died after detention from ICE. Querida Yasmin, I'm sorry, I never lost a child, but can tell you I have a 10-month-old who I worry about constantly. And when that immense worry, which feels like I'm walking through stone mountains, turns to grief, it will feel like suffocating, left to breathe under rubble. I'm sorry her last days weren't spent running outside, playing with her favorite doll, or pointing at monarchs. She was locked in a cage, stared at blank walls. Today, my son saw trees, blue skies, and before bed, we counted the stars. I'm sorry you didn't get to hug her before she passed away, your biggest regret. She was on a ventilator. You couldn't give her a hug even though she reached for you. I spend my days hugging my son. This is all he wants when he reaches out his arms as if holding the sun. I'm sorry that all you have left is her handprints in pink paint. The hospital staff did it as a Mother's Day gift. She died on May 10th, Mother's Day in your country. When my son was born, I counted his fingers. Every time his hands reached for my face, it was like saying he loved me. I'm sorry that your memories and dreams of your daughter will end at 19 months old. At 10 months old, I think of what my son will be at 5, at 10, at 30. You don't get to do that anymore. In your mind, she will remain the little girl dressed in a light blue jumper, black pattern Mary Jane's, hair in pigtails, smiling at you. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me? I'm gonna assume yes. So I'm just super honored to be here. Thank you all so much. Thank you, poets and writers. My name is Alexander James, LA-born poet, friend of Camari, friend of CLI. I'm just really honored to be here. Thank you, poets and writers, for having us. Thank you, CLI, for choosing me. I'm going to put on my poetry voice because I have a sleeping 2-month-old in the other room. So I'm gonna do my best. I want to share with this quote that I heard during my time in the CLI program from Wallace Stevens. And that quote says that the poet is the priest of the invisible. So I just want to say that to honor all the work that poets are doing in this time. I think it was Shelley Bully who said that poets are the undervalued legislators are the poets. So I'll do my 2 poems and get out of your way. This first one is simply called July 4th. July 4th, 2018. Somewhere there is Manuel, 8 years old and 60 pounds, a small boy. You can barely make out his thin figure during the flashes of lights, during the fireworks he saw through the window. His skin, tattooed by chain-link shadows, with every explosion of color and light literally covering him with X's, as if to say that we are crossing out your American dreams, that before you could ever breathe diplomacy, Manuel came to America following his father, but when they hopscotched over America's imaginary line, they could not hop back. They put him and his father in separate cars, separate teams, separate states. He believes they are playing hide and seek, but he does not want to play anymore. He stands there wishing that he was not so good at hiding, that his father could find him. He sees a bright red firework in another state. There is Maria, 42. She can see the same firework from the back seat of the ice truck she was throwing in. Her arms burn where her daughter's claws dug trenches in her wrist when they pull her apart. Maria's fingernails, painted by the shine of the celebrations that we burn and send to the sky. The cramp in her legs screamed to be repositioned. The scratches from the high weeds that kissed her ankles deeply left its lipstick up and down her leg. She is seated between two guards who smell of privilege. She sees a bright red firework and misses her daughter. And somewhere else even, there is Susan or Sarah or Nancy, tightening her apron as she pulls her apple pie from the oven, and she can hear her son's footsteps rush down the stairs in response to the aroma. Her son pulls her hand outside, and they watch the same red firework as the pie cools. Dad cannonballs into the pool just to splash them both, and they giggle and see the same bright red firework. And all three of these stories happen in the same country, on the same day, on the same night, under the same firework. And this, as much as they complain about getting back to normalcy, is still the same America. Happy July 4th. All right, so that's my my first poem. And this next one I'm going to do, it's called Middle Finger. Middle finger. I have asked for forgiveness often for the work of my middle finger. It has cursed more than I could ever bless in one sitting. It has been a trumpet of my frustrations, the crescendo of my bad days, what I would use to conduct a symphony of my sarcasm. But I am convinced that my son seeks to redeem my middle finger. His hands will only hold it whenever we walk. He transforms it into tether, into bungee cord. As his feet negotiate with gravity, he grabs it like umbilical cord, like lifeline. When he stumbles, he squeezes tightly, like he is wringing out all the filth that I have dipped it in. I try to take it back. I offer him other fingers, but he will not have it. He has rejected all but this one. I do not count it a coincidence that he has chosen my proudest finger, humbled it in his grip, washed away its spine the way the waves smooth stone. I see my finger differently now. It is no longer this instrument of war and just an instrument. A grappling hook from my son's imagination, evidence that we are both still learning to walk well when wind and uncertainty will try to blow us out of our moments. I have found out, to be honest, that he is more an anchor for me and not the other way around. I promise when rage and wind would take me away, he and his grip keep me grounded. It is like he knows that my middle finger is also my most lonely, forced to only speak when the others are hidden. He gives my middle finger a group hug in his hand, makes it curl, and I am not sure if I am holding him up or if he is securing me down. And either way, I am grateful for his grip. Middle finger. So those are my two pieces. I'm pretty sure I stayed within the time parameters. Thank you all so much for allowing me to share here on this space. If I turn off my video, it's because I'm checking on the baby. But thank you all so much. Alexander James.
Thank you so much, Alexander and Erika. That was wonderful. I'm going to quickly introduce our third group from California. And after that, we'll do a little raffle for a magazine subscription, and then we'll take a short 5-minute break. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce the curators for the Los Angeles Poets Society, Jessica M. Wilson and Juan Cardenas. Jessica is a Chicana beat poet and founder of the Los Angeles Poets Society. She has an MFA in poetry from Otis College of Art and Design and a BA in art history and creative writing from UC Riverside. She is the author of Serious Longing, and she is also a poet teacher and area coordinator for California Poets in the Schools, a much loved organization. Jessica is also an Activate Arts Fellow and a mama to Sol and Luna. Juan Cardenas is a classically trained flautist and a beat poet. He is the Associate Director for the LA Poets Society and author of a new book of poetry, The Beat of an Immigrant Chicano. He is also a poet teacher with California Poets in the Schools and an Activate Arts Fellow. Welcome, Jessica and Juan.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Jamie. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here amongst everybody. Y'all got me crying. I'm like, oh, I have to talk. But it's just such an honor, really, you know, to be amongst everyone and to be a recipient of an award, to share poetry, to write poetry, to share the craft of poetry in the community. So we're grateful for this support and big fans of poets and writers. And before I introduce everyone and talk about the program, I just wanted to ask.
Hi, everyone. I'm Juan Cardenas, and thank you so much, poets and writers. And thank you, Erika. Oh my God, I was also crying.
Yeah.
I was like,
Erika and Bill.
Thank you so much for your beautiful poetry. Like, it's a narrative that needs to definitely be heard. You know, that are what people, you know, that came over here. Either way, thank you so much, poets and writers.
So for this workshop series, it really was a dream workshop for me. I'm a poet, and I also have a BA in art history, so I love art, and this gave me the opportunity to share my art history knowledge and to share my love for art. And educate my fellow writers about it and look at modern art. And so our workshop series was an ekphrastic poetry workshop based off of art from a local art gallery called La Galeria Gitana in the San Fernando Valley. And they had a new exhibit called Above and Below the Sea, so lots of ocean imagery. And again, this workshop has been through COVID-19, so this gallery is closed, but through this workshop and through the support of poets and writers, I was able to share the work or the artwork with these poets that you'll be meeting shortly. And so this is ekphrastic poetry. Again, I want you to just know that this is art that we were looking at was sea life, you know, so ocean imagery, and we can go from there. But enjoy the poetry. And also I want to thank poets and writers for being there for us, artists, and also in this time of COVID-19 and the murder of George Floyd and really like everyone rising up in this whole change happening in our country. Having this workshop not only offered opportunity for voice for us, but it offered a grounding and a stability that something that we could hold on to and move us forward through these times, you know, to keep pushing through the next day, the next week. So I want to thank you for that. So our poets today are Felicia Taylor E. and Sandy Cornejo. And I'll just read both their bios, but Felicia, you can kick it off, and then Sandy, you can close it up. Felicia Taylor E. is a writer, poet, actress, and arts educator. She's been published in the Los Angeles Poetry Anthology and the Letter Project. Her story performances have been funded and commissioned by museums and the California Arts Council and performed throughout California. All right. And Sandy Cornejo, yeah, hey, if we were in live, we'd be like, ooh, right? Sandy Cornejo was born in Chicago Heights, raised in Boyle Heights, and grew out of harsh nights and cement dreams. A poet driven by her hope of healing past and present lifetimes, protected by butterflies and followed by one sunshine. So without further ado, Felicia Taylor E. and Sandy Cornejo.
Thank you, Jessica. You know that I feel that LA Poet Society was, like you said, it was a grounding during this time and a true blessing. So I want to thank LA Poet Society again, and also, you know, Juan. So Juan and Jessica both, and also Poets and Writers, because you know, I feel like without the infusion and assistance and support in the community, then the community cannot be able to share their voices and be able to benefit the way that we have. So I really, really enjoyed the time and hope to continue. The first piece I'm going to share is called Beautiful Flow. And as Jessica said, the pieces were based on things from the sea, from the ocean. And this particular piece is inspired by a piece called Beauty and Brains. And it is
Felicia,
we can't hear you.
Muted all of a sudden.
You didn't hear a thing I said?
No, we heard Beauty and Brains, I think.
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay. Like I'll start doing my sign language. So Beauty and Brains is dedicated to Beauty and Brains. It was a painting that we saw that was an octopus. Beautiful flow. I dance with grace, swooning in the waters as my body and head move to the rhythm of the big band beats. Dressed in elegant white, a masterpiece of style, flowing within the liquid of solace. With my belly beautiful and full, movement calls my lovers and my friends forward. I embrace them with my arms of tentacles and tickle them with my tips. We delight in my giddy style and float in a procession for a while and a while, swirling down, down, as close to the cool rock bottom where the sounds and the crazies dart around, tending to hide beneath in the dark as they go to and fro, where we wiggle for a while, then sway, as our unique beauty moves and flows and flows and floats away. The next piece is called Sacred Kiss. And it was based on a painting of called Our Precious Waters. And it was a sand dollar that was sitting on the sand with beautiful, just beautiful objects from the sea, like seaweed. I think seaweed is beautiful. and other shiny rocks and shiny shells that were on the sea. Sacred Kiss. Sand dollar dreaming of sanctified waves that cleansed me before a time that I was enraptured with life, with love, gratefulness of land observed and the important scene, prayerful sounds of family, unity, sanctuary, erupting and straining. I must escape to the surface only to be plummeted more. I am synonymous with an element that is being polluted and destroyed. Contamination and death fill the bubbles we see creatures consume. Burning poison fills me with a stench of disregard, disrespect, discarding the very part of existence that allows us to be, piece by piece, moment by moment, choice by choice. My flesh is dissolving to dust, strewn into the mother's core, as a whisper of impalement by weakened inhabitants of the ocean and beyond echoes sadness. Beyond the sacredness, ash to ash is upon us, like a body that has been cremated. Within the burning covers of deadly tombs, our Creator and Earth Mother cry, a chance was gifted. We have shunned that sacred kiss away. Thank you.
Beautiful, Felicia. Thank you so much. And Sandy, you can close it out.
Okay. Is my mic on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay. I just want to say thank you again to the Los Angeles Poets Society. I wrote a little bit of something for them. I want everyone to know what a beautiful experience it was. Together we shared our light, but most importantly, all of us had different palettes. And we were able to paint gorgeous views when the entire world blocked all of its scenery away. So it was definitely a very warm meeting every single time, and we had the best host, Jessica. Thank you so much. Okay, here goes my first piece. This one was a portrait of a manatee with the sea animal and literally a t-shirt. So it's from his perspective. Here we go. They told me to pose in an American Apparel shirt, but I wondered if they had fixed their practices. Were the sewers made whole? Were they still spilling affordable sweat on expensive machinery? Did the owners stop harassing them? I agreed on wearing green because I heard it makes humans do superhuman feats. Or was it less than human things? I always mix those two up. Maybe I should have picked another color for their Photoshop dreams. Can the photographer research which foreign dye was the least foreign pain? Which one will result in the least domestic fumes? Which t-shirts will damage the fewest domestic brains? I'd really like to know. During all these thoughts, I miss the simplicity of the water. In the ocean, we don't compete for name brand fins. We don't outsource anything. Local flow is always recommended. When we are all made from the same water, it's hard to hate on any one fish's swimming style. My time for sitting still has now expired, yet all my questions remain valid. Can I just ask one more as a finale? Does the person with the camera have a smile under the mask? Or will my manatee germs infect their personal bubble? Asking for a sea friend. Okay, so that was the first one. The next one was based on a piece that was called Sea Turtles. And this was also from their perspective. And it's a pretty short one, so here it goes. When they came back from quarantine, we were floating freely in the new growth. It all began again. The dumping of paint, oil, and man-made poisons. The older ones were accustomed to it, but the babies had only known organic colors. Grandparents sang lullabies warning of oily bubbles, yet the lure of shiny unknown particles tuned out the melody of vintage songs. Slowly but surely, our numbers decreased. It was as if it was our turn for COVID-19. After the first initial dump, the older generation just could not compete. They left the waters, like the last ocean breeze before summer holds your sweat hostage. Every now and again, you can still hear an aging whisper and say, I cannot breathe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandy and Felicia. Thank you very much. So we're gonna raffle off, before we take a short 5-minute break, we're gonna raffle off a magazine subscription for our curators and readers from California. And I'm just gonna pull a name out of the cowboy hat because this is the Wild West.
Nice hat.
And we'll see who gets the subscription. It is Erika Ayon of the Community Literature Initiative. Yay! Congratulations. All right, so please stay with us, hang tight. We're gonna take a 5-minute break so you can stretch your legs, get a glass of water. We'll come back and see a few more groups from New York.
Yeah, New York is up after the break. Get ready. Okay. Is everybody back? I don't know how people can answer, but hopefully you are. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so we move into the second part of our reading. The New York RW East. And we're gonna start off with writers from the National Domestic Workers Alliance. And I'm going to introduce Claudia Prado, who's been their teacher and curator. And Claudia, you'll please forgive me for my mispronunciation of some of the Spanish titles here. My turn to not be able to speak a language. Claudia Prado was born in Argentina. She is the author of El Interior de la Baleña, Aprendemos de los Padres, Belén de Custén, and Villar de Noche. She co-directed the documentaries Hornones de Piedras about the poet George Leonidas Escudero and El Jardín Secreto about the poet Diana Bellisi. In 2011, she was the recipient of a Fondo Nacional de las Artes grant, and in 2015, a Queen's Council on the Arts grant. From 2006 to 2011, she was one of the facilitators in the poetry workshop Yo No Fui in the Women's Penitentiary in Izia, Argentina. She lives in Jersey City and facilitates creative writing workshops in Spanish in New York and New Jersey. Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. Now I will present our project and the readers, and I will mispronounce in English also. For 6 years now, we have shared reading, writing, and conversation in the National Domestic Workers Alliance Spanish language writing workshop. This year, we have made our first bilingual book. Its title is Las llaves de mi casa, The Keys to My House. You can download the book for free. Now I will send the link in the chat, if I can. There you have. The title was a response to a line from one of the authors, Nashi Galindo. In a poem, next to other images of a workday, she writes, a ton of keys to doors that aren't mine. It is a book that opens the door to the author's own home, those who know and take care of the smallest detail in the homes of others, who take care of other people, write in this book about themselves, their stories, their childhoods, their desires, the value of their time, and also about work. Among the more straightforward lines of the book are those of Silvia Reyes. If only people realize how hard it is to be an immigrant in a country where they do not want you, where you are just a number, one more worker, the shadow that cleans their house and looks after their children. The Keys to My House was written before COVID-19 shut in their homes those who could afford to stay home and left exposed to infection, those who have needed to keep traveling by public transportation and going to work. It was written before a large percentage of the people who work in other people's homes, cleaning or caretaking, were fired and left without access to government assistance. The title, The Keys to My House, and lines like those of Silvia Reyes now carries other resonances. In our workshop, we write in Spanish. Now you can enjoy this text also in English. So we feel we are also opening the door to our language, with which, despite being far from our countries of origin, we continue living our domestic lives, expressing love or fear, creating. I want to thank Poets and Writers for its permanent support, to National Domestic Workers Alliance for the opportunity of working together, and to all the workshop participants for their hard work and friendship. I also want to thank the volunteer translators that always help so our work is can be read in both languages. Today you are going to listen to two of the authors who are published in The Keys to My House, Maricela Sosa and María Pavón. Now I will try to share the screen, or no, I can't.
Ricardo, can you give her a co-hosting to do that, or is that?
Now I can. One moment. So I can read the bio in Spanish and you can read it in English. Maricela Sosa nació en México, tiene 55 años, vive en Brooklyn, New York, tiene 2 hijos y trabaja como niñera. Su pasión son sus niños, disfruta lo que hace, en sus ratos libres siempre está haciendo nuevos entrenamientos y talleres de capacitación. También es miembro de National Domestic Workers Alliance. One moment. María Pavón nació en Ecuador, pero se siente de cualquier sitio. Ha cumplido su sueño de recorrer el mundo. Es una romántica enamorada del amor que aprendió a arreglar el corazón roto y escribe esos sentimientos en una hoja de papel. Well, now, Maricela, are you there? Probably I need to stop sharing.
Buenas tardes.
Te escuchamos bien, podés leer.
Sí. Buenas tardes a todos. Voy a leer El río. Los momentos en ese inmenso río cuando era chica son inolvidables, porque pasé muchas alegrías y penas. Un día fuimos con mi abuela y mis tías al río, y algo que marcó mi vida para siempre y no he podido olvidar es una escena donde perdimos a mi hermanita, una bebé de 1 año. Nos percatamos de que la niña no estaba donde la habíamos sentado. El río se la había llevado y todos nos tiramos a buscarla. Y recuerdo que fui yo quien la encontró y la miré pataleando en el río, y corrí y la saqué y la llevé a los brazos de mi abuela, y ella le sacó el agua. Mientras las otras hermanas lloraban y gritaban, mamá nos va a pegar porque no cuidamos a la niña. Pero a pesar de todos esos sustos que pasé en ese inmenso río, tengo bellos recuerdos. También tengo momentos mágicos. Allí jugábamos al chango con mis hermanas. Nos embarrábamos de lodo todo el cuerpo de pies a cabeza. Solo los ojos nos brillaban y gritábamos, ahí viene el chango. Y corríamos como locas. Echábamos brincos desde un árbol grandote que tenía unas ramas que caían al río. Entonces, qué felicidad. No había hambre, no había frío, todo era color de rosa. También jugábamos a hacer tortillas de lodo y las comíamos. Y cuando el río crecía, sacábamos peces y tortugas para comer. Esto fue hace 48 años, casi medio siglo. Quise volver al mismo lugar donde fui tan feliz y lo que me encontré ahí fue una gran sorpresa. Ya no hay ríos, solo lagos y una playa inmensa, desierta y muy triste. Yo creo que el río Le hicieron falta nuestras risas y nos extrañó tanto que de tristeza se secó.
Hi.
Now Felicita Cordes will read the English version. Thank you very much, Felicitas.
Yes, I'm going to read The River by Maricela as translated by Silvina Lopez Medin. The moments about that enormous river when I was young are unforgettable because they were full of joy and sorrow. One day we went to the river with my grandmother and aunts, and something marked my life forever. I cannot forget it, the scene in which we lost my little sister, a 1-year-old baby. We realized she was not where we had left her. The river had taken her, and we all dove in looking for her. And I remember I was the one that spotted her kicking in the water, and I ran and pulled her out and carried her to my grandmother, who took the water out of her body. In the meantime, my other sisters wept and shouted, "Mama is going to spank us because we didn't take care of the baby." But despite all the scares I got from that enormous river, I also have beautiful memories and magical moments. We used to play chango with my sisters. We would cover ourselves in mud from head to toe, and with only our eyes shining, we would shout, "Here comes a monkey," and we would run like crazy. We would jump from a huge tree that had branches and lean toward the river. What joy! There was neither cold nor hunger. Everything looked rosy. We would also pretend we were making mud tortillas and eat them. And when the river rose, we caught fish and turtles to eat. This was 48 years ago, almost half a century. I wanted to go back to that place where I had been so happy, and what I found took me by surprise. There aren't any more rivers, just lakes, an immense, sad, and deserted beach. I think that the river was in need of laughter, and he missed us to the point of drying of sadness.
Now Maricela will read another poem.
Una noche callada y fría, cuando las horas en silencio me pasaba observando a mi amado en su cama frágil. Una tristeza inmensa me abatía. Con dolor en mi pecho, yo me hacía preguntas. Dios mío, ¿por qué me has abandonado? Me siento sola y triste. ¿Dónde estás ahora? ¿Por qué no vienes en mi ayuda? Con esta carga en mis espaldas, ya no puedo caminar. Estoy cansada. Las noches se me hacen eternas. Quisiera dormir y no despertar jamás, para ya no sentir dolor ni angustia.
Okay. On a quiet and cold night, I spent hours in silence, watching my beloved in his fragile bed. Overwhelmed with huge sadness and pain in my chest, I asked myself questions. Dear God, why have you abandoned me? I feel sad and lonely. Where are you now? Why don't you come to help me? I can no longer carry this load on my shoulders. I'm tired. Nights feel endless. I would like to sleep and never wake up to stop this pain and sorrow.
Thank you, Felicitas. The next reader will be María Pavón. It's here with the name Naxita María Pavón.
Buenas noches. Quiero confirmar si me escuchan.
Sí, te escuchamos bien.
Perfecto. Doy paso a mi lectura. Son las 11 a.m. La radio suena en alto volumen. Ella tiene hambre. Necesita que la cambien. Está cansada de estar sola y de permanecer largas horas en la misma posición, en el porche frío de aquella casa vieja, al vaivén de su hamaca. En ese ambiente de soledad y bullicio por esa música cansina. Así, cada día espera su ángel piadoso, una vecina que va por ella, la baja de semejante tortura y la atiende. Así pasan los meses y no me explico cómo sobrevive. Nació muy débil, demasiado enferma. La encierran en una habitación oscura. No es una niña hermosa, tiene un defecto. Esa es la razón para esconderla. Siempre está sola. Por eso pronto aprendió a caminar para poder salir. En el vecindario todos la conocen. Nunca le falta su plato de comida. Sin embargo, su salud empeora cada vez. Sus pulmones son débiles. El médico no le da esperanzas. Su mal no tiene cura. El día de su cumpleaños, por primera vez, está con su padre. No tiene fiesta, pero es el mejor recuerdo que se queda guardado en su corazón. El padre abraza a su niña y le pregunta, ahora que ya tienes 5 años, ¿te gustaría irte a vivir conmigo? Ella casi no le da tiempo a terminar la pregunta, se abalanza a su cuello y le dice que nunca quiere separarse de él. Se la lleva a sabiendas de que serán sus últimos días. Van a vivir en la selva. Nadie lo hubiera imaginado. Aquel ambiente puro y los consejos de chamanes y curanderas van surtiendo efecto. Se va curando poco a poco. Así transcurre un año, tiene que ir a la escuela. Todos los días camina por largos senderos llenos de aventura y grandes peligros hasta llegar a sus clases. En aquellos años conoce la felicidad, tiene el cariño de su padre para ella sola. Aprende a sobrevivir y a ser libre. Son los mejores recuerdos de esa infancia donde lo tiene todo. Si tiene hambre, le basta subirse a un árbol y tomar una fruta, la que le apetezca. Si tiene sed, acercarse al arroyo, a beber aquella agua fría con sabor a roca. Para desayunar, ordeña a su cabra y tiene leche caliente. Siempre recordará el olor a barbacoa cuando en el campamento preparan esas carnes deliciosas de los animales que cazan. Ahora, cuando cierra los ojos, aún escucha el río, el trinar de los pájaros, mezclado con las chicharras y algún aullido o maullido. 3 años después, dejan ese lugar mágico. Ahora empieza su camino de espinas. Su padre acaba de morir, enfermo de cáncer. Con apenas 12 años, tiene que enfrentarse a la vida sola. Tiene la calle larga, sus piernas para recorrerla y sus manos para labrarse un futuro. Le espera lo más difícil, dejar su niñez y convertirse inmediatamente en adulta. Responsabilizarse de sí misma. Aquella niña se esconde para siempre en el cuerpo de la mujer que acaba de nacer. Desde entonces sigue soñando con volver a subir a los árboles, correr tras las mariposas y hacer 1000 travesuras. Tiene el recuerdo de los naranjos en flor. De vez en cuando juega a ser niña. Pues ahora las traduzco en inglés. It's 11 a.m. The radio is playing loud. She's hungry and needs changing. He's tired of being tied up in the same position for hours on the cold porch of that old house, swinging back and forth in hammock, lonely in the bustle of Ionic melodies. Every day she waits for the Pause Angel, a neighbor who comes to get her out of the hammock and assisted her. Several months go by. It is hard to understand how they survived like this. She was born too weak, too sickly. She's kept in dark room. She's a not pretty girl. She's a flout. She's a raisin with the hide hair. She's always alone. She soon learns to walk in order to get out. Everyone in the neighborhood knows her. They always give her food, but her health and gradually worsens. Her lungs are weak. The doctor doesn't give any hope. Her condition is incurable. On her birthday, her father showed up for the first time. There is no party, but that memory stays in her heart. He hugs his daughter and says, "Now that you're 5, would you like to move in with me?" She hardly lets him finish the question. He rushes into his arm and tells him that she never wants to be separated from him. He takes her, knowing that this will be her last days. They move to the jungle. Nobody would have ever imagined that in a pure environment and with the advice of shamans and healers, they will get better and better. A year goes by. He has to go to school. Every day he walks to her classes, a long trail full adventure and exciting perils. During those years, she gets to know happiness. He has her father's love to herself. She's learning to survive and be free. These are her best memories ever. This childhood where she has it all. If she feels hungry, she just climbs a tree and takes any fruit of her liking. If she is thirsty, he goes to creek and drinks that cold water that tastes like rock. For the breakfast, she milks her goat and gets warm milk. She will never forget the delicious smell of barbecue coming from the campsite where they cooked the meat of the animals they hunted. Still today, when she closes her eyes, she can hear the river, the birds singing, the cicats, and some howling or mewing. There's the 3 years later, they have to leave that magical place. Her path of thorns begins. Her father dies of cancer at the age of 12. She is forced to face life on her own. She has a long way ahead, 2 legs and 2 hands to carve her future. It is the worst moment, leaving her childhood behind to become an adult in an instant, responsible for herself. That girl hides forever in the body of the woman that is just being born. Ever since, she has dreams of returning to those trees to chase butterflies and the mischievous, the remembers the blossoming orange trees, and from time to time, the pretends to be a little girl. I don't know if you understand me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, María. Thank you, Maricela.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was so moving, really. And thank you for sharing with us, really. I'd like to now introduce the second group for New York, Poetry Speaks for Us. And I'm going to introduce Sally DeJesus. Sally is a writer, spoken word, and mixed media artist. Since 2005, she has been facilitating poetry and art programs for children and women in Concourse House, a homeless shelter in the Bronx, a New York City high school library, cafes, sister uptown bookstore, and in crisis respite centers. Her poems have been published in River and South Review, Metropolitan Review, a new collection of Bowery poetry, What Rough East and Mad Gleam Press, and has exhibited mixed media sculpture in the South Bronx Longwood Art Gallery 25th year contemporary show in East Harlem. Sally is a literacy resource liaison at Concourse House Home for Women and Their Children's Library. As a founder of Poetry Speaks for Us, Ms. DeJesus seeks to illuminate and empower the voice of those who are without support. Sally, take it away.
Thank you. Unmute. Okay. Thank you, Bonnie, Marcus, and poets and writers for your support. You've been supporting my programs for, I think, about 6 years, right? And I met Bonnie at a poets and writers workshop teaching her how to apply for readings and workshops grants, and it took off from there, doing workshops at the Concourse House with mothers and children, and from there jumped up into the crisis respite in Bronx and Manhattan, and then East Harlem Health Action Center and a few cafes. But I really was motivated. Poetry Speaks for Us, formerly Sally DeJesus. I've been for 15 years, but I wanted to find a place, a public platform, so that people who were emerging poets and writers could feel safe to grow confidence in the public speaking muscle. And I wanted to help them to publish and self-publish and put their work out there. And so I'm gonna put my glasses on to read this part. So I use writing and spoken word as a vehicle for personal growth and self-empowerment. New York City crisis respites throughout all 5 boroughs of Manhattan, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, I think Staten Island, are warm, safe, and supportive spaces, providing an alternative to hospitalization for people experiencing emotional crises. So you can stay for a week and get the support that you need and deserve. I started doing poetry workshops in those places, and just setting up an open mic and amp, bringing writing materials and writing prompts for people who may have just arrived there even that day from the hospital, or wherever they came from. And similar to the shelter, it just grew as a place to find out your story was really important and interesting. So what else will I say about Poetry Speaks for Us? I went on to get a community grant and start applying for funding from poets and writers to do the workshops and open mic at Sisters Uptown Bookstore in Harlem, where it's a safe, comforting place for emerging poets and writers to come, including children who can read their poems and be applauded publicly for the first time. Very empowering, very exciting experience, and I'm honored to have found places that support that. So the two people I have who are reading are Sheila Alwadi and Felix Guzman. Both of them have been attending workshops in the crisis respites in the Bronx and Manhattan for a couple of years, I'd say. Maybe Sheila a few years, Felix a year. And it's been a pleasure to see them grow and as writers and develop their work. Sheila Alwadi is a 60+ single African-American female living in the South Bronx. In 2010, she received a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. She began attending the poetry workshops in the Bronx at the Respite a few years ago and was happy to see how creativity continues to assist a mental health sufferer in recovery, where she feels that it is very satisfying for her as a member of the mental health community to have the workshops as an outlet for her personal self-care regime. Sheila enjoys writing short stories, poetry, and making sock puppets. So today, Sheila will be reading a fictional short story based on a day in her father's life, as well as a poem she wrote in one of the workshops at the Bronx Crisis Respite. And then my second reader, Felix Guzman, met at the Manhattan Crisis Respite. And oh, I need to go to my phone for this because I have an updated bio here, excuse me, for Felix Guzman. I will say it's a pleasure to see these two writers grow their work and their confidence. So Felix Guzman is a poet, organizer, and peer working towards building healthy communities inclusive of all. Currently facilitating debate classes at Rikers Island with the Rikers Debate Project. Felix is a proud member of Vocal New York Coalition for the Homeless, Fortune Society, Community Access, and countless other organizations. Formerly identifying in all spaces as formerly incarcerated and formerly homeless, not to cause conflict, but to raise awareness to the intersectionality of the two worlds. Felix advocates for what is right, standing against injustice and using the power of personal testimony always, building positive conversation around the issues of ending mass incarceration, ending homelessness, harm reduction, and mental health as a survivor of said broken systems. Felix is an advocate for the community at large. He has been published in Voices of Fortune and has 2 poems featured in the Fortune Society Success Stories album from and by Fortune Society. He has performed poetry at venues, press conferences, rallies, open mics, and award ceremonies, including on the steps of City Hall, at Carnegie Hall, New Yorican Poets Cafe, Staten Island, Fatherhood Awards, and more. His periodical writing has appeared in the New York Daily News as an opinion editorial on the issues of homelessness in City Voices newspaper on the issue of removing law enforcement from encounters with those in emotional crises. Felix lives in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, born and raised, and is soon to self-publish his first collection of poetry titled, You Have Value, You Have Space, You Hold Space, You Are Loved. Touching on the universal themes of redemption, transformation, restoration, and self-love, this collection of poetry stands to have timeless appeal. As a person in recovery from mental health challenges and substance dependence, Felix hopes to be able to incorporate his lived experience into providing recovery-oriented instruction in therapeutic practice as a poetry therapist in the future. For his dedication to building healthy communities, Felix has been appointed to the Department of Mental Health and Hygiene Consumer Advisory Board in New York City Council's Commission on Community Reinvestment and the closure of Rikers Island. So I want to welcome first reader Sheila from the Bronx and next Felix from Manhattan. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, poets and writers. My first reading will be my poem that I wrote in one of Sally's workshops. I met Sally at the Crisis Center, like she said, and this just occurred to me during one of the sessions. It's called Process and Progress. Don't let anyone interfere with your process or progress. Trust the process, I was told. It'll help you develop the skills that will manifest your future goals. Why, I asked. Because you become what you think about. Well, I don't want to be bipolar. Energy flows where attention goes, they said. No goal is ever manifested without action, the process. So, since thought precedes action, what I sow, I will reap. I heard that the mind is like a garden and doesn't care what's planted in it. Bipolar doesn't validate or identify me. What I sow, I will reap. Poetry, music, art are the seeds. Self-validation is the process. The next thing I want to read, I have some illustrations with the story that I wrote. It's about the day in the life loosely, based loosely on my father when I was a child. It's called Stations. Buddy eased his tall, well-built form out of the project apartment door. His coffee-colored face, marred by pockmarks received during his stint in Korea, pressed lightly up against the steel door. His muscular arm brushed across the rough finish of the hallway wall. Careful not to make any noise in case one of the neighbors was up this early, he made his way down the hallway to the staircase. Instead of going down, however, he started up to the roof. He walked up the stairs, gliding noiselessly on the tips of his feet, listening for any sound that would indicate he had company. On the last level, he leaned against the cold concrete wall and pulled out a small cellophane bag, the type used by post offices to put stamps in. There was a small amount of white powder inside. The staircase smelled of cheap wine and urine, and a used condom lay pushed up against the corner of the wall. Trying to ignore the stench, Buddy took a small spoon he'd taken from the apartment, along with a candle and some matches, out of his shirt pocket. He tilted his large, well-shaped head, poised to listen for anyone coming. His senses screaming, he finally began to cook up the dope he'd hidden the night before from his young wife, Carol. He felt a twinge of regret for keeping the last of the stash, but soon dismissed it. She'll get some more, he thought. Minutes later, the dope was ready, and he took his homemade syringe out and shot up. With a soft, triumphant laugh, he gave up all his senses to this powerful stimulus. The young Black man felt a peaceful, euphoric sensation as the drug spread to his arms and legs, rendering them useless. Dropping his head onto his chest, he felt his legs giving way, and he slowly slumped to the roof staircase's floor. The drug slowly flooded his groin, which now seemed to have the capacity to evoke its own pleasurable characteristic apart from him. Lights flashed, exploding beneath his leaden eyelids. He moaned and passed out. And what seemed like hours was in actuality only minutes, when upon opening his eyes again, he found himself face to face with a sweating project cop. As his vision focused, he could see that someone, a civilian, was with the cop. Yeah, he was right. It was his wife's boyfriend, Old Man Bill. He stood there in a soiled t-shirt behind the cop, his enormous belly looming from above his belted pants. What the hell was he doing here? He carefully hid his anger and slowly started to get up from the cold concrete step. Quickly, the cop pulled out his gun, ordered Buddy to stay put, and added nervously that a patrol car was on its way to pick him up. Buddy continued to rise anyway, noting that the cop's gun hand was shaking, with the gun in it. Hell, both hands were shaking. Now completely on his feet, Buddy swayed purposely to fool them into believing he was still under the effects of the dope he'd taken earlier. Bill, still standing behind the cop, was whispering something in the cop's ear, his bulldog-shaped head nodding cautiously as he watched Buddy from his small animal-like eyes. Buddy saw that Bill's fat, thick lips were wet. Spit escaped them as he excitedly spoke in a low tone. Buddy let his eyelids droop as if he was nodding out, and he listened. His pounding heart raced even faster now. So that was it. That old bastard was the one behind this bust. Old Man Bill probably wanted him out of the way so that he could have his wife, Carol, all to himself. How the hell had he found out he was home? He only got out of the clink yesterday afternoon. He must have spies all over the projects. Lifting his head slightly so that he could see, Buddy next pretended to stagger toward the two men. The frightened project cop stepped backwards into the old man, and in the very next instance, Buddy had the cop's gun. Smiling at them both, he told them in a cold, gentle tone that it was not nice to point guns at people. Buddy's anger flashed again. He felt like smacking the old black dude with the butt of the gun just for GP. Instead, moving carefully past them, he kept his eyes on them both as he started downwards in the staircase. That punk project cop had his eyes closed and his shaking hands were in the air, as though he had been ordered to do so. The gun felt heavy, but comfortable in his hand as Buddy kept the barrel trained on them. Old Man Bill licked his lips and his mouth was moving, but no sound came out. They were so scared. He was certain they wouldn't have the heart to follow him. On the next landing, he switched staircases, jumping steps 5 or 6 at a time until he was out the back way. The bright sunlight blinded him for a moment, but the street was empty, no cops in sight. Moving quickly to his car, he got in, tossed the gun into the bushes nearby, and with the engine roaring, pulled away from the curb, laughing. Chuckling to himself, he thought, those two dummies never even noticed that all the time the gun was out, it was safe, the safety was still on. Thank you. That's it.
Hello. Hi. Sorry, I thought it was going to be an introduction. My name is Felix Guzman. I'll be reading a couple pieces, 3 pieces. I just wanted to say that I, as a formerly incarcerated, formerly homeless person, I feel that it's my duty to hold space for those in society that are sometimes treated as expendable, also without redemption possible. So that's why I say that I formally identify as formerly homeless, formerly incarcerated. Poetry has saved my life. I write for redemption, recovery, and rehabilitation, and just to stay alive. So, as a very trauma-impacted individual, I use the medium of poetry to express myself, to heal, and to just continue going forward when hope and faith aren't available to hold on to, and you know, that's where I'm at. So this first piece is called Poetry Saves Lives. Poetry saved my life. It's about just the journey that I went through, as I just kind of talked about just a little while ago, about being in those traumatizing spaces. through incarceration, homelessness, hospitalizations, and drug addiction, alcoholism, and whatnot. So here goes. Poetry saves lives. Poetry saved my life. Wearing smiles bought at discount, scarred from the traumas of yesterday. Water for the concrete, tears shed in homage for those who from us did fade. Broken but not forgotten, lost from the light once before but found in grace, with clarity lent by life lessons, playing before insightful eyes. Never be caged again will the little boy within be by anxieties placed by imposed definitions. Shackled at the waist, wrist, and ankles, then and now, still poverty proves most unforgiving. Refusing to surrender in no particular order to death, jails, institutions, and personal prisons. Do not tell me what I can't become or can. In my words, I'm holding an inheritance of wisdom. All tomorrows measured never into the indefinite. Without waging war will I die into. Free to become my dreams and as much as free to suffer. Can it be that it was all so simple? Through tears I have written, of the light within the words that pour forth is evidence. Quarter waters and now and laters, my childhood plays before my eyes in reflection. Poetry saved my life more times than I like to have endured. For that I am grateful. I will eulogize poets past always until I no longer breathe. And on that day so fateful, wherever home was and is, I will walk, carrying crosses of failed expectations on shoulders narrow, never wanting to be this strong. I won't be one of the nameless. I refuse. Poetry saves lives. Poetry saved my life. Thank you. That was my first piece. I appreciate being able to do this. Thank you for Poets and Writers. Thank you for Poetry Speaks for Us and everyone else. This second piece is called When Breathing is an Act of Resistance. It's sort of my sort of I don't know, I guess war declaration, I don't know. But when all seems a little dark and you know, just breathing is enough. When breathing is an act of resistance. Breathing is an act of resistance. The life giver to revolutions coming and gone. The breath coursing through lungs promised not to another having. The undertaker of nightmares and conduit for all achievements. When all seems still, understand while we breathe, we move, gliding through the vacuum of space. Whether 10 toes planted firm or taking flight in dreams, when distance grows between progress, let us prepare. Let us prepare to fail, allow our lot. Let us prepare to fail, allow our fires being reduced from overwhelming to diminishing to entirely overcome. We are gatekeepers. We are the love others seek for them. We are shipwrecks, but still discoverable. We are poets with fortunes in our eyes, more than ever fathomable. We are our truths lived aloud. We are communities we want built for those to pitter-patter after us. We are the legacies we write to hold space for us in our absence. When all seems lost and gasping between cries, I will look for correction in the words of poets past and present to remind myself how to breathe when I want to give up. So I say to you, refuse to see yourself as nothing. At times to weather storm, all to do is live. So live with the understanding that when all seems too dark to endure, breathing is an act of resistance, and that is good enough. Thank you. And this last piece is called Brighter Burns My Light So. This is a sort of non-denominational prayer slash self-reflective affirmation. Again, when hope and faith aren't available, there's poetry. And for me, sometimes that reminder of just who I am in that space of just trying to find purpose. I kind of use this as a tool for healing. Brighter burns my light so. That's so, S-O, not soul. Brighter burns my light so. Broken but not forgotten. Alive, I am not a ghost of my past. Provided for as I need, I who have nothing, have as I asked. My yesterdays, now a hell of ways away from who I used to be. I believe you merciful, loving, and blind, never with how you love me. Brighter burns my light so, because of you, brighter burns my light so. Trace your steps through the darkness, I endeavor so always. Troubled but not wanting, refuse another their peace. Away you sweep every tear before they stain the pillows of my cheeks. I who have nothing, with the hell of old have made peace. Brighter burns my light so, because of you, brighter burns my light so. Thank you. And that was my last piece. I just wanted to say thank you for everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. And, thank you to all the poets that created the opportunity for me to be here. And thank you.
Thank you so much. A wonderful work. Poetry Speaks for Us. Felix, breathing is an act of resistance. That's going to stay imprinted in my heart. Beautiful, moving. Okay, so we're moving into our last but not least group for New York, Soul Sister Review. And I'm going to introduce Cynthia Manick. Cynthia is the author of Blue Hallelujahs and editor of Soul Sister Review, a poetry compilation. She has received fellowships from Cave Canem, Hedgebrook, MacDowell Colony, and Chateau de la Napoule, among others. Winner of the Lascaux Prize in Collected Poetry, Manick was also awarded honorable mention for the 2019 Furious Flower Poetry Prize. She is founder of the reading series Soul Sister Review, and her poem, Things I Carry into the World, was made into a film by Motion Poems, an organization dedicated to video poetry, and has debuted on Tidal for National Poetry Month. A performer at literary festivals, libraries, universities, and most recently the Brooklyn Museum, Manick's work has appeared in the Academy of American Poets, Poem a Day series, Bone, Banquet, Los Angeles Review of Books, the Wall Street Journal, and elsewhere. She currently serves on the editorial board of Alice James Books and resides in Brooklyn, New York. Take it away, Cynthia.
Thank you, Bonnie. So, Soul Sister Review, we're so happy to be here. We're so happy to get funding from poets and writers. You guys are our little angels on our shoulders. So I created Soul Sister Review back in 2014 because I wanted to see diversity on stage. I wanted to see diversity in terms of skin color and also in terms of poetic skill. The series is for established and emerging poets who write in the tradition of storytelling. When I say storytelling, I mean poems that give us a full-fledged experience. I like my readers to have poems make me see what they feel and feel what they see. And so when I have my readers read, I also think of Motown and how soul is part of our lives and part of our history. So all the advertising for Soul Sister Review is basically an homage to Motown. So here are all their past cover arts and also past ads and whatnot. We can see a connection to Aretha Franklin, Nina Simone, Stevie Wonder. People can think about how they can archive their own work and their own stories. So we are now 7 years strong. Our first anthology was released actually in November. And our next show is August 11th with Rachel Eliza Griffiths, Natalie Diaz, Joshua Bennett, and the wonderful Hannah Jess, who won the Pulitzer Prize. But on to our today's readers. Today we're going to celebrate two readers who I adore. The first is Nadia Alexis. Nadia Alexis is a poet and photographer born to Haitian immigrants in Harlem, New York City. Her poetry appears or is forthcoming in Mid-Season Review, MQR Mixtape, Indiana Review, and Shenandoah. She is a fellow at the Watering Hole and College Creative Writing Workshop and a PhD student at the University of Mississippi. So she is talented, multifaceted, and she is obviously very, very smart. Our last reader, but not all least, is Rico Frederick, who also did the cover art for the anthology. This is work right here. Rico is a graphic designer and the author of the book Broken Calypsonian. He holds an MFA in writing from Pratt Institute. He is a Poets House Emerging Poets Fellow and a Cave Canem Fellow. Rico is a proud Trinidadian. You often see him with the Trinidadian flag at readings, raving it around, but he lives in New York. I constantly admire the way he writes down the world and its music. So we'll start with Nadia, followed by Rico. Nadia, take it away.
Hi. Okay, so I'm just going to read two poems. Hopefully people can hear me.
You're good to go.
All right, great. So this first poem is called Cantaloupe. I grew up eating cantaloupe all the time because that's one of my mom's favorite fruits. It's forthcoming in Shenandoah in an upcoming issue with them. Okay, Cantaloupe. I am 10 the first time Ma let me split the skin of a cantaloupe without her. My knee still bandaged and burning from a fall I took on the playground that day. While playing tag, a classmate pushes me like she wants the ground to remember it. I don't push back, tell my teacher instead and declare I wish it was a half day. When I get home, I tell Ma I'm aching for sugar and numbing, so she hands me a knife and I lay the tough skin fruit on its side. Cut the two shortest ends and watch them fall like playing cards. I think back to the breaking, stand it upright to make it into a split sun. Ma offers to redress my wound in ointment. I dig up and toss innards like they're memories I want to bury. There is no aloe vera here. Cut until cantaloupe flesh resembles square-shaped Lego bricks. Devour several slices before I place the others to rest in our Tupperware. 2. My sisters and I climb the plastic-adorned couch in our living room. Mountains of clothes and blankets all over the rug for extra cushion. Today we dive into an ocean, bellies full of fruit blessings and minds still on fire from a story Ma told us about a Black girl in Harlem who could fly like a bird. We want to turn into dolphins and fly. We know we can wish this. Feet steadied, hands on each other's shoulders, knees bent for the journey. There's nothing like the thirst of Black girls who believe in their own dreams. Cantaloupe juice can only quench so much. We fly and dive into the water we built, bellies pointed up and down as we lie, with bodies transformed into wind. And the second poem, last poem that I'll read is called Watershed. It was recently published in MQR mixtape, Watershed. I arrive at my father's feet, a dying mapu tree. He covers his eyes with mud while the goats feast on my fallen hair. I hear my mother call for the Lord to send just enough rain for our lungs and her carnations to see a new season. My mother always says boys and men are best at taking. I remember the ones I loved who turned pomegranates in my yard into salt. In the mirror, I see a donkey's head without a home. Daisies dance atop her hair and she teaches me how to wail for cover. My mother and I kneel on uncooked rice. Sweat of our hands no longer remembers its owner. Our knees become prunes. One night I see my father weep and rock like a forgotten river, how he must know what it's like to fight against disappearance. Every year, Lake Azui rises and forces change on the trees and birds and people of the watershed. They no longer believe the water will leave them. The longer I stay in the home my lover and I built on this mountain, the more I tire of circadian leaps into the field of cacti. I spend nights imagining a life without hail and the company of vultures. I make peace with the ways my father and I look away from errors and ruin. My parents make rituals of warnings, and I follow in their footsteps anyway.
My mother says I can build a new home from clouds, and I believe her. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Rico Frederick. Thank you, Rico.
I used to feel so uninspired. And when I knew I had to face another day, Lord, it made me feel so tired. Before the day I met you, life was so unkind. You're the key to my peace.
Sing it.
You make me feel. You make me feel. You make me feel like a
I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Come on, sing it. Sing it. Thank you. Thank you for participating. I am so excited to be here. Thank you, poets and writers. I had to start off with that song because we are repping Soul Sister Review, and we know how to do this. We know how to give this energy and this light. So I'm so grateful to be here. Again, my name is Rico Frederick, and this is my first piece, and it's dedicated to this lady who we just listened to. And if you know the words, you make me feel like a natural. Who cut you, Aretha? Made you bleed like that, slick molasses vinyl? Lady, cross your legs. Your superpower showing. Heaven, your mouth a halo. Got a crown of sweat growing on my forehead. When did you realize fish cooks better with a woman's tears in it? What about us folk make you want to set an extra dinner plate for glory? How a soul woman croon can take a spoonful of pain from up out under the left rib. See, some love is good love, but self-love is true love. And somewhere in the world, another little boy on his tippy toes, dancing on the rooftop of his mother's shoes, his brown face mushed up against her stomach and swaying. My next piece was published in Southampton Review, and it was a blessing that they selected this piece. And hopefully you guys listen and hear it, you know. It's called A Burying, and it is about today's times and what we're going through. Oh, say, can't you see by the dawn's police lights, stepping on the necks of a nation filled with people the color of heroin tracks? We all the side effects of Snow White and the savage cartels, old white lies, offering up the blood of Black assassinations, first world immigration, those laws made slaves of my West Indies, call us sugarcane currency. I say, let time be the inventor of death. No more stink-hearted South. Red and blue does not make orange-headed bigot president left to leave no regrets pure as the cocaine 80s. MTV was the first TMZ, watching Rodney King get crowned runaway Fidel, Philando Castile, and the beating goes cliche. Ask Serena. She knows, like every Black woman knows, it is a racket when colonial umpires try to steal your love, because serving body don't suit their game. And the only King James gets respect is the Bible. shut up and play basketball, or nigga get sprayed across your pearly gates. And academics make fun of our subpar vernacular when all we started with was bling bling. Now Lil Wayne in the dictionary. Tupac and Biggie taught in Ivy Leagues. Like, you ain't blacker than Taylor Swift, moonwalking to Billie Jean, Miley twerking over Afro beats, as if Kim K would care so much about prison reform if her husband couldn't almost go to jail. See, social racism is this country's most profitable narcotic. And these here United States be the biggest drug trafficker in modern history. Funny how years after the Ferguson riots, Black catchphrases be slapped, dragged, beat, gassed, smoke, liddy, snatched, slay, slayed, kilt, bodied, got, bag, laid, ghost. Black folk, name your kids Justice. No, name each and every one of us America. Maybe then the law will get tired of burying this country. Got one more piece. And again, I thank each and every one of you for reading tonight. I am so appreciative of the space. Poets and writers, thank you so much for the elegance of this evening, for the trust of this evening, and the power of this evening. My final piece is dedicated to my mother. It is dedicated to my homeland of Trinidad and Tobago. And it is called First Day of School. Red cup. First day of school. Down El Socorro Road stands a seamstress built like a switch. Quick to cock back she left hand. Boy, who you think you're sucking your teeth at? Have a foot for both sides of your ass, you know. Her son is a prefect, perfect B student, trying not to wrinkle the 6 a.m. pressed into a Movant Laventil school uniform. Never forgetting my English teacher's defiant Creole, bamboo rulers, and crack knuckles. See, when I speak of my homeland, I know not to piss on a fire just to see smoke. America, your winters do not smell like a pomerac. The naive taste of native tongues. I failed my first exam because I spelled color with a U. You is a black crockpot. You is a midnight cockfight. You is a blood-hungry Gael, gossiping savannah dust, American tar baby, homeland security in your mouth, gawking, shadowless, moving moko jumby, steel pan, serenading the hips of a fat bamsy flag woman. Lord of mercy. The way Old Glory stopped and stared at our countries like, damn, you look good. And I am learning to appreciate the little things. Like hailing a maxi taxi from Port of Spain to Sawa is not the same as trying to find one yellow cab willing to take my blackness back to Brooklyn. If this skin stands too long in a convenience store, management might find it convenient to open my melanin with a policeman's badge. Ma, I never use the N-word till I get my citizenship. I am an immigrant, decolonizing the Constitution, breaking my back to live this gone foreign dream. All lessons learned, C-O-L-O-R, C-O-L-O-R, C-O-L-O-R. O is for opportunity, O is for opportunity, O is for this opportunity. And if I was you, boy, if I was you, I wouldn't forget me neither. Trinity to the bone. Thank you so much. Poets and Writers. Thank you, Soul Sister Review. I appreciate you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Wow. 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 I think it would be great to just unmute and just applaud us all for a moment and scream for a minute, and then I'm going to do the raffle for the East. But yay!
Righteous words, brothers. You,
everybody,
brothers and sisters, you're all amazing. Yay! Yes. Powerful words.
All right. Yay. I want to do the raffle for the East.
Thank you, everybody.
I don't have a pink cowboy hat. I have a rainbow love cap.
Yay.
I'm going to pick a raffle for magazine subscription for one of our New York readers, and the winner is Sheila Alwadi.
Go.
Thank you. I also realized I want to thank everybody. This was so incredibly inspiring. I also realized I forgot to thank RW East funders, and I want to do that now. I want to give a big thank you to the New York State Council on the Arts, who has supported our program since the very beginning of Poets and Writers, giving us money to give to writers. So yay. And also the Department of Cultural Affairs in New York. We have, compared to other parts of the country, we have a really, even though it's not as much money as some of the other arts, really good literary funding here. So I'll be grateful for that. So everybody, thank you so much. This was wonderful. Ricardo, are you still there? You should be.
I'm still here. Sorry, I'm like trying to.
So it was all recorded that they can tell their friends about. Can you tell us what they?
Yes. So we are now right now live on Facebook. Folks have been commenting. We got comments from Australia. From India. And so I definitely recommend to just check out the comment section from the video if you can. Thank you all so much for your generosity and your time. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the
Be safe,
readers.
everybody. Take good care and keep up the writing and the voices and the activism and all of it. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Some of the
Thank you, everyone.
PW people want to just stay in for a few minutes after. So take care, everybody. Enjoy.
Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night. Good night.